You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. Today, a Mississippian, Brock Mosley. He is a pro fisherman on the pro circuit. 10 years, he's fished Bassmaster Classics. He's won professional tournaments, and he's going to tell us all about it today on the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast.
Mississippi Outdoors is sponsored by Entergy Mississippi. Entergy is building a stronger and cleaner grid to power a brighter future and protect our great outdoors for generations to come.
He is Brock Mosley, pro fisherman from right here in Mississippi, a homeboy.
Yep.
Welcome to the show, Brock.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, so we were talking about it's not Collinsville, it's Collinsville, Mississippi.
Collinsville. Yep.
What was growing up in Collinsville like?
Well, it's a big-time baseball community. West Lauderdale just won their 16th state championship just last week. So big baseball community, just sports all around, and just good old country folks, outdoor people, hunting, fishing, and ball playing. That's about all we did.
And for those listening that are thinking, okay, where is it? So just north of Meridian.
Yeah,
right?
Just northwest of Meridian.
Yeah. So were you a ball player too growing up?
I was, and played with a bunch of guys that went on to play D1 and further than that. And I went on and played JUCO and then played at Delta State. And, it's just kind of what we do over there, play ball.
Well, and Delta State baseball, it's absolutely what they do at Delta State.
Yep.
I mean, there's a ton of success there over
You have
the
to play
years.
for Coach Kennison. And, you got to be able to work hard to play for him. And enjoyed it. Anytime you get to play for a legendary coach like that, it means a lot.
Yeah. So, all right, where did fishing fit in then? So you're growing up playing baseball. You don't just go off to college and play baseball just because you halfway like it. You're playing a lot of ball and you're committed to it. How did you fit in, the beginnings of becoming a pro fisherman into all that also?
Well, growing up when I was young, my dad owned the boat dealership there in Collinsville, and always hosted tournaments and put on tournaments. So I grew up around the tournament scene, I guess you would say. And then, we lived, we had a small lake right in our backyard. And, if I wasn't playing ball or something, I was fishing or hunting, but, it was just one of them deals where that's all I ever wanted to do. He took me to my first Bassmaster Classic in like 98. And ever since then, I've been hooked, And
where was that? In
Birmingham. Yeah.
Okay.
And, I love playing ball, but, at the end of the day, I always knew I wanted to fish or try to make a career out of it. So, it was kind of like goes hand in hand. I took kind of a work ethic that you had to have to play at the next level and took it into fishing. And I always said, I'm not as talented as a lot of guys, but I try to make up for it in work ethic. So, it's just, playing, in high school for Coach Jerry Boatner at West Lauderdale and then playing for McKenna at Delta State, it's just, you had to work hard to play for those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were talking, I'm wondering, the competitiveness that you have to have in athletics and how that translates into the competitiveness you have to do what you're doing now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're similar but different also, right?
Yeah. You gotta have good work ethic, and you gotta stay competitive, don't ever get satisfied.
Yeah.
Even, the good events, I'm always taking back what I could have done better to change, maybe the outcome. So it's one of them deals where, especially, 7-8 years ago, I got to where, finishing in the top 10 in tournaments just wasn't good enough for, myself. I was always walking away, I could have done something different, could have been better. But, the competitive part, you always just try to make yourself better and stay humble and just compete the best you can.
Yeah. It's neat for me to get to sit across from you and ask you these questions because you're doing something successfully that like I wanted to do when I was a young guy coming out of college, and so many others want to get there.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, maybe it doesn't work out. Okay. But I ran into something. I played sports, played in college, and then what I found was like my sport, football, it's a very aggressive, very active thing. You can muscle your way and anger your way through things.
Yeah.
And then I would be just as competitive on the deck of a boat in a tournament, but I couldn't anger my way through it. I couldn't even in some ways aggressive my way through it.
Yeah.
And managing that was really hard.
Oh, yeah.
What about you?
Well, now, being on the national scene, you with a camera on us, majority of the time, you really got to watch what you do. And, there's times where I want to go kicking and screaming, but I got to act professional out there. And, it's one of them things where you have to keep it, low key and you're always in the spotlight, whether you want to be or not. Mm-hmm. And that's with anything. And you got to be able to, there's somebody always watching. And, you want to set a good example for people that look up to you. So you keeping all them things in your head and like I said, the whole keeping yourself humble. But yeah, there's a lot of things that make you want to go kicking and screaming sometimes.
Sure. What is the biggest difference between, let's say, someone who they fish recreationally and they're very good, very experienced, very good, but they do it recreationally, mm-hmm. versus someone who is very good at tournament fishing? What are the differences in those two things?
Probably just time management and, at the level I'm been the last 10 years is being able to break down a new body of water in just a handful of days. We only get 2.5 days of practice on a lake, some lakes I've never been to before, which there's few of them now since I've been doing it so long, but being able to kind of break down the lake in 2.5 days and being able to kind of tune everything out. Because there's a lot of distractions, in the tournament scene, but time management as far as just the recreational angler getting started, maybe fishing that Thursday night, fruit jar it's all about time management and making the most of your time.
When did things really start to happen for you? Like I said, there's a lot of us that we decided one day, oh boy, I want to be a pro fisherman. Okay. But when did it really start to happen for you where you go, okay, this is happening?
It's kind of funny you ask that because I always thought, once I make the elites, I've made it. I'm here. But that's not necessarily the case. I remember asking one of the veterans after my 4th year on tour, and I've qualified for the Bassmaster Classic that year. That season, I remember asking this veteran, I said, man, how many years did it take you to feel like you had actually made it? Mm. And I remember him saying, he said, after about my 5th full season on tour, I felt like I'd made it. And he was pretty spot on with that. After my 5th year, I finally felt like, hey, I'm here. I'm comfortable because it's not just about the fishing part, it's the business part. I mean, if you don't have great companies and sponsors, then, you're not going to be too successful in it because you're going to have so much pressure on yourself. I mean, it takes a good support group to back you up. And, after about my 5th year, I got the companies, my backbone, I guess you would say, and good relationships with these companies that I knew that I don't have to worry about losing them as long as I do my job. And that's not necessarily catching fish. I mean, it's the whole business end of it. I finally got my feet on the ground and got to running. And it took me about 5 years to finally feel that way.
To feel like, okay, it's here.
Yeah.
So now, how many years are you into it now?
This is my 10th season on tour.
Okay. So a full decade for you.
Yep.
10th season on tour. You fished the Classic. You've done the TV thing with the cameras in the boat and all that kind of stuff. What is the daily, weekly routine like for you now? Is it year round you're on the road fishing? Are there times when you're at home? What's that like?
No, not right now. I got a young family, I guess you could say. I have a 4 and 5 year old girl.
Okay.
So when I'm home from the road, which I'm usually only gone maybe 12 weeks a year, when I'm home, I want to be home. You know what I mean? I don't want to be one of them that brings my work home with me, so to speak. I don't fish near as much as I used to when I'm home. I do cattle now. I run a Black Angus farm, and me and my dad do, and that keeps me busy when I'm home and kind of helps me step away from the actual fishing part of it, kind of a break from it. But, I'm not all just fishing every day, like I was so in my mid-20s. It's more or less, that way when I'm going to these events and showing up, like I'm fired up, like, hey, I'm getting ready to do what I love to do. So it keeps the fire going, but, I also got things, that I can do when I'm home to kind of give me a break from it.
In that 10 years of being a pro, what tournament, one tournament experience is kind of at the top of your list?
I mean, there's quite a few. I got to win one a couple of years ago. It's on down in Texas, and that was pretty cool. I was finished in the top 5 in the Classic one year. That was pretty neat. And there's a lot of moments you take in that there was. I finished second 5 times before I finally won one. So I mean, there's so many so close moments to finally get. Actually winning one that actually kind of got the monkey off your back, that 800-pound gorilla that chokes us down. But, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows. You got to take them as they come.
5 runner-ups before you won that first one.
Yep.
Okay, so take me back to before you won that one. Did you ever have a time where you thought, man, what do I got to do? One more fish, 1 more pound, like what?
No, I mean,
were you confident it's going to happen?
I was so close so many times that, I felt like, it's only a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I always say, if God wanted me to win one, I'm going to win one. And that's just what I had to tell myself is if it's meant to be, it'll happen. It was disappointing to walk off, finishing runner up the first couple of times, but about the, 3rd or 4th, 5th time even, I just walked off kind of ticked off, but, I ended up crossing that line and getting my first win, and that took some pressure off for sure.
Where in Texas was that?
Sabine River down in Orange, Texas.
Okay.
Right there on the Louisiana border.
So how were you catching them in that tournament?
A lot of fish on top water. It's kind of a place that's kind of like here in Mississippi. It's real shallow, real dirty water. A lot of tidal to it. And it just kind of one of them things where it took me back to my roots and what we do around here. I always tell people, we're not from those 20 to 25 pound a day lakes around here in Mississippi. We're get 7 or 8 bites and they weigh what they weigh.
Yeah,
and that's just kind of the mentality I've always taken everywhere we gone. And it was just one of them deals where it was a tough fishery, kind of like we have here in Mississippi. And it builds you mentally. Like you got mentally knowing that, hey, one hook set could be the fish that changes the outcome. And I've just always handled them tough events very well just from, being here in Mississippi.
Sure. What's your favorite fishery in Mississippi? That may be an unfair question.
Yeah, I mean, I love Ross Barnett because Ross Barnett is simply, it could be a completely different lake from one day to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could go out there one day and catch them one way and go out there the next day and that just completely not work.
Yeah.
And it's always been a puzzle. And that's what fishing is to me. I'm like an elderly lady that likes to put puzzles together, and those lakes are my puzzles. Uh-huh. So Ross Barnett's one of them that's kind of always throwing you a curveball, and it makes it difficult. And, we always like the difficult ones.
Sure. So that like the lake, the river in Texas you mentioned, shallow, dirty water. You think about Barnett, maybe in the spring, shallow, fishing shallow. Places like that, the live view and live scope and all the talk and the back and forth about that, is it not as big an advantage on those types of body of water?
No, it's not. And I don't even know if necessarily if it's the dirty water. I think it's more of the shallow water because, like Grenada Lake, I mean, it's dirty year round, but, they're catching 4-pound crappie with live scope. And it's just, a lot of it has to be where it is. The whole river system helps. Tidal, that's a big influence on it. And, but yeah, I mean, if we're going to say Pickwick or somewhere up there, I mean, you better have live scope or Bay Springs. I mean, it's, you got to have it to compete nowadays.
Yeah, sure. Have you gotten to fish many like professional, like tour tournaments in Mississippi in your home state?
I have fished one on Ross Barnett, and 2 on Pickwick. And I was doing well in the one on Barnett till the 3rd day. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to try to do well in that one.
Why? Because it was at home?
Right. Well, considering it be a home lake, I mean, these guys around here will, whoop my tail any day of the week. But, it was just one of them deals where it was probably my 3rd year on tour and before I got on tour, I was spending a good bit of time on Barnett. So I felt like, I knew it and had the home field advantage if there was one. And I felt like just, I was, in my mid 20s, just felt like I needed to do well to represent, I guess you would say.
Sure.
And then, I have finished second in one of the ones on Pickwick before. That was where one of my seconds come from a few years back. But I always loved Pickwick. It's completely different and from, what we're used to here in the middle of the state. But, man, it's just one of the most fun places to fish. You can catch smallmouth. I mean, that's as far south as we can catch smallmouth here in Mississippi. And I love catching them things. And I actually, the tournament I finished second in, I had, out of the 20 fish I got to keep over 4 days, only one of them was the largemouth. They were all smallmouth.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Across 4 days,
Across
one
4
largemouth?
days. One largemouth.
Good night.
Yep. It was a fun week.
I bet it was.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And this is a very elementary question, but for those listening that might not know, the difference in catching that big smallmouth versus catching that big largemouth, how do you describe the difference?
Man, picture a little ball of hate, and that's what a smallmouth is. They fight so hard, and they're so fun to catch. They're so mean. They never give up. They're fighting till the end. A largemouth, he's actually going to give up on the fight and just let you, hey, all right, reel me in. I'm done. That smallmouth, he's going to be mad at you the whole time. And, man, they're so fun to catch, and there's so many big ones in Pickwick. People don't realize, it's a legendary smallmouth fishery when the smallmouth fishing's on. Yeah. And, they're different from up north, when we go to, say, upstate New York, but they're fun. Yeah. I mean, it's just all I can say. And they're beautiful fish. I mean, brown, smallmouths, they look like footballs.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
What's kind of a combination of your favorite way to catch smallmouth at Pickwick and maybe the most effective way to catch them at Pickwick?
Well, it just really just depends what time of year. I mean, from springtime, they could be, it could be a good jig bite. It could be a swim bait bite, depending on the current. I mean, that's the one thing about smallmouth on the Tennessee River. It's all about the current. And when we have those spring rains, kind of like what we're going through now, where they're generating a lot of current, it really gets some things fired up and biting.
Yeah. Last week, and we're recording at a time of year where we've had a rain, and last week I saw more than one boat going north on the Natchez Trace in central Mississippi, and I thought, they may be going all the way to Pickwick.
Yes, could be.
They're moving a lot of water, and it'd be the time to go, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime they got a lot of current generating through there, the fish are biting. And that's largemouth and smallmouth.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason that Pickwick is kind of the place that you got guides like Roger Stegall and others who they've made a living by taking people catching smallmouth on that body of water.
Roger's a legend, and he's taken my money a lot on Pickwick.
Who are your influences? Who do you credit maybe going back even as a young guy that were your biggest influences in pushing you along or motivating you along into your career?
My dad and my uncle both always kept me on the water, and another uncle of mine, he always kept me in the outdoors, whether he's taking me pond fishing or something, and that's what you got to have, just people keeping you in the outdoors. I mean, there's so much negativity in the world today that, when you get outside on a lake or a pond or in the woods, it's just, it takes a break from all that, and those people always kept me in the outdoors, whether, I was, pond hopping or, fishing small lakes or, fishing my first couple of tournaments, and always kept me going. And, but yeah, those guys played a role for sure.
The love for the outdoors, the love for the sport of fishing, that thing that, we all felt as a kid, and that first bass that we caught when we were a little bitty guy, and your adrenaline gets going. You still have that? Does it ever?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, being competitive is hard not to get let your emotions get the best of you on the water sometimes. But yeah, I mean, it's still, when I'm having a good event and everything's clicking on all cylinders, kind of like that baseball pitcher that's, he's 6-7 innings deep and he's just in the zone. You get in that zone on the water too, and you you know what you're doing, what you're looking for, and things just start to click.
Is the Bassmaster Classic, is it still considered kind of the pinnacle?
Yeah, absolutely. And it always will be. I mean, they've had events where, the winner gets, $1 million, and, it just never picked up steam. Like there's only one Bassmaster Classic, and that's just, the way it is. And it's a really cool deal. I've got to fish 5 of them so far. And, my first one, it was a lot of nerves involved because I'm like, man, I finally, here I am. I've been wanting to do this since I was a kid, but, as you kind of like, anything else, the more you fish them, the more you're like, it's got to take care of business. Like you start to tune everything out.
Yeah.
And it's a fun event. It's a long week, but it's a fun event.
Is the outside attention, fans, media, other stuff, is that something else to deal with at the Classic versus other events?
A little bit. It's one of them deals where, since it is the pinnacle of our sports, like there's a lot of like I had to do for sponsors that same week too. I mean, there's been, classics where I'll weigh in, and as soon as I get through weighing in, and, they take you backstage and you go to a media center. And after I get through with the media center, I'll go to the expo and show my face in a few sponsor booths just to, just to show my face, and then I'll have to go back to my boat and do my tackle and all that. Classic week, there's not a whole lot of sleep going involved. I mean, there's been, some of them, like the one in Fort Worth a couple of years ago, we were leaving the hotel at 3:15 in the morning, having to drive 60 miles to the lake. And I mean, it's just one of them deals. It's a draining week, but it's a fun week.
Your first Classic, where was that?
Birmingham.
Okay, so fishing in Birmingham. So you watched your first Classic in Alabama in 98, I think you said. And then your first one you were fishing in and made it was over there in Birmingham as well.
Yep. And then I let the nerves get the best of me. Actually, the first day I came in with 1 fish. And then the second day I went out and did what I was supposed to do and had the second largest bag of day 2. And but it wasn't enough to make the third day, but that was the only Classic I've been in where I haven't made, the final day. But it's one of them deals where, the nerves got the best of me, and it's just one of them deals where you've been there, you've done it, and you start to tune everything out.
Yeah. Take me back though to when you made it. When you, like, what was that moment where it goes, okay, I'm in. I am in my first Bassmasters Classic. What was that story?
Yeah, we had an Angler of the Year championship that year, and it was on Lake St. Clair. And, I knew the point standings, and I knew technically I only needed to catch 1 fish in that Angler of the Year to make the Classic because I had enough points where I couldn't fall out. So when I caught my first fish, and it was a 4-pound smallmouth. Oh, wow. Yeah. I knew it was done. Like I had made it. So it was one of them moments that was kind of surreal. And it was hard not to get emotional about it. But, it was just a pretty cool deal. Here I am in the middle of Lake St. Clair, and there's no land in sight and really no other boats in sight. And I catch 1 fish and get to share it with my marshal there. And it was a pretty cool deal. Yeah.
Pretty cool deal. That's an understatement.
Yeah.
4-pound smallie. I'm in my first Classic.
Yeah.
What was it like when you told your family?
Well, they pretty much knew it.
They knew
and they were proud. I mean, they knew how hard I've been working to get there. And the year before, I had just missed making the Classic. And it was one of them deals where they were emotional. It was all kind of like a team effort. I mean, they've watched me from the beginning, and to finally accomplish something that I've been shooting for my whole life was, just a pretty cool deal.
All right. So you had 5 second place, runner-up finishes before you won your first professional event. You told me, you were like, well, I figured it was just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Hang in there. You keep doing this, it's going to happen eventually. You feel that same way about maybe winning a Classic? And I know it's hard to talk about success that might come. As an athlete, you're humble. You don't want to say, I'm going to do this, going to do that.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it'd be nice to bring that one home. There's only been, 3 guys in the state of Mississippi that's won one, and to join that group would be pretty cool. But it's one of them deals where you I don't know how many more I can even, going to be able to qualify for, much less, get to fish. But
Sure.
With it being one a year, but I hope so. I've had my opportunities. The one in Fort Worth, it was one of them. It was my second classic, apparently, and it was one of them deals where I blew it the first day. And my roommate ended up winning, which was pretty cool. But he can tell you, he's like, man, if it was a 4-day event instead of a 3-day event, you were going to hunt me down, because I started day one in 42nd place and I finished the tournament in 5th. Mm-hmm. So it was one of them deals where I haven't made too many decisions on the water that I can look back on and be like, man, you were stupid for that. That one classic was one of them. I said I was trying to save my best areas for day 2 and day 3 of the classic. And I still don't know why I did that. And I only came in with 4 fish the first day. And then day 2 and day 3, I climbed all the way back up to 5th. And
so it paid off those spots.
Well,
those
yeah,
latter days.
There was still a lot of fish there, and it was enough for day 1. It's just I was just being stubborn about it, hard headed. But you live and learn.
Sure. What would you say? You're 10 years in, you've got wins under your belt, you've got classics, you got top 5s there. What would you say is next? I mean,
well, you always strive, man. You can't ever get settled. I've always wanted a classic win but I've always wanted the Angler of the Year, because it's a full year deal. And in 2021, I think, I finished 4th in Angler of the Year, and I lost Angler of the Year by 15 points. And I can go back and look at, a fish I broke off that may have won it for me, just something like that. And, that's one thing I've always strived for, because that's a year-long win. You know what I mean? The Classic's 1 tournament a year. Angler of the Year is 9 events. So that would be special. And that's kind of what I strive for every year, or would like to strive for. Yeah. And I've been close, and who knows, maybe we can get it one day.
Yeah. What's it like pulling a boat all the way to New York?
I'm used to it by now.
Are you really? People
are like, man, you don't have a driver, or somebody to drive it up there, and you fly up there. And I'm like, for one, I'm the kind of person, like, I'm not going to pay somebody to do something I can do myself. I mean, that's just flat laziness. But it's one of them deals. I have some close friends outside of Cleveland, and, I can drive to Cleveland in one day and stay with them for a night, and then drive the rest in one, the next day. But I've driven it straight through multiple times, and depending where I'm at. I've been at Lake Champlain, and I drove it straight through one time, and it was 23 hours.
Without stopping? Stop for gas?
Well, stop for gas. That was it.
Man.
Yep. And the year of COVID, we were actually getting COVID tests as soon as we got to upstate New York. And I was so paranoid, because this was literally the first events after COVID. And, we were kind of the first thing getting back as far as sporting events. And luckily at the time, my truck had a 38-gallon tank on it, and I stopped 2 times all the way to upstate New York, and I wouldn't touch anything, but that was a long drive. It was like 18 hours, but, it's one of them deals where you just get used to it. I mean, some of the countryside, I've left here literally in August, and it'd be 100 degrees, and I've gotten upstate New York, and it'd be 49.
Wow.
So it's kind of nice to go up there from the break. You're looking forward to getting there, and plus the fishing is amazing.
So that's the part of it that we don't see.
Yeah.
The hours in the truck, the long days practicing. What for a pro like you on a pro circuit, pro tours, pro events like this? What is practicing for a tournament like?
I usually stay on the water daylight to dark. Once the days get long, you're June, July, August, because, when we go up north, say in, upstate New York or Michigan, it's not dark very long. I mean, maybe 6 hours, 7 hours a night. But, those kind of days, I only I'll practice, I'll put a 13-hour limit on myself, because it's just after 13 hours in one day, you're mentally exhausted anyway. But, that's the whole deal, is trying to break down a body of water in 2.5 days. And fortunately, once you have as many years as have now, I've been to most places they take us. Like this year, we went to one in North Carolina. That's the first time I've ever been there. And actually, it was the first time any of us had ever been there for the most part. And it was pretty cool. It was kind of new. It was unique. And it was just kind of had that fresh feeling to it. So, like I said, we're just all puzzle. We're just putting pieces of the puzzle together, and that's what we like to do.
Do pros, do y'all help each other sometimes? Do you talk? Do you share information?
Yeah, I travel with 3 or 4 guys, and we'll just kind of swap information, what we're getting bid on, maybe what type of cover and stuff like that. We don't necessarily share locations or areas, but just kind of what's working for us.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
You gotta have a network.
You do have a network.
Yeah.
Okay, so for a young person listening, a young guy who's like you, when you were growing up in Collinsville, maybe he plays ball and he loves fishing. He thinks, you know what? If I don't play in the major leagues, I want to be a pro fisherman. What's your advice?
Just work hard, man. I mean, to me, I'm the kind of person, if you can set your mind to it, you can do it. If there's a will, there's a way. And, that's how I got here. Just hard work. You're going to get knocked down, and, all that old saying, if it don't kill you, it just makes you stronger. It's true, cause any sport, but especially this one, it's real humbling. You're going to get knocked in the teeth. You're going to have stuff go wrong. And, it's just, you got to battle through it and push through it. Fortunate for me, my wife and I, we have been dating a long time, and luckily she was about 3 years behind me in school. So I had a couple of years I could play before I had to put a ring on it. So I was able to get my feet on the ground, in the elites before I had to get married. So it all worked out. I had a little bit of playroom. That was the biggest thing, was keeping her happy.
Yeah. Well, I bet she's happy now.
Yeah.
10 years into it, it's rolling, going good. You got some wins under your belt. And I would guess and feel like I could probably speak for a lot of people in Mississippi that as Mississippians, we're really proud for you and proud of you at the same time.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And, it's always, it's always home, always been home. And, I've never lived outside the state. I lived in Oxford for a couple of years. I loved it there. Moved back home once me and my wife got started, and, it's always been home to me. So it's pretty special.
That's good. Well, congrats on all the success. Really looking forward to seeing what's next, Brock. And thanks for being here today.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. He is Brock Mosley, one of the best pro fishermen. He's from right here in Mississippi. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you outdoors.